Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome to another video. Hope you guys are doing well today. And we're back this time talking about the build that I've been trying on the road that is absolutely absurd. It's just carried me through the Capstone dungeon at level 45, by the way. As you can see, I'm not full legendary. My gear is a mishmash of just awful stuff at the moment. Um, and yeah, I'm not particularly well geared, but we've just gone through. I'm not going to lie to you guys and say that it was completely easy. It wasn't. The last boss took me 3 or 4 attempts. I had to play it particularly well, but I'm only level 45, right? At level 50, I'd have absolutely walked through there with this build. So let's talk about it. So I played Twisting Blades all the way up to like level 35, and then I decided, you know what? I wanted to try something different. And this is the build I'm currently playing. So we've gone into ricochet, we've gone into puncture. Come on, say hello. We've gone into puncture, which is enhanced puncture and fundamental puncture, and we've gone into flurry. Now, flurry only really works. Well, get down, you muppet. The dog's being needy because I've started talking. We've gone into flurry. Flurry only really works as a build with this legendary, or sorry, this one. So flurry damages enemies in a circle around you and deals 14% increased damage. That's the key part of that is the circle damage. And the reason for that is because you want it obviously AoEing and spreading out damage. We've then gone into enhanced flurry, which heals us quite a lot. So everything's pretty much going to be vulnerable when we hit, which means we're going to be healing for up to 12% of our maximum life every cast, which is huge. The healing on this build is absurd. We then have improved flurry, which is why everything's going to be vulnerable, right? We use puncture to make it vulnerable. We spam that a couple of times. As soon as one mob is vulnerable, we can flurry. Everything's then going to be made vulnerable, and we're going to be healing loads. We've gone into sturdy for close damage reduction. Obviously, we have to go into melee, so we want to make sure that that works, as well as siphoning strikes. We do crit a fair bit. Obviously, it's just extra healing. We've then gone into weapon mastery. Now, in an ideal scenario, I'd like to be using a bow as my range weapon, and probably daggers. Now, the reason for daggers over swords is because we want that big burst at the start of their health. And I think that we're going to be able to pretty much just burst through most mobs. It doesn't always happen, and sometimes a sword is better with just like the general 9% increased damage. At the moment, I'm just using whatever's best. So I don't worry too much about it. The only thing I don't like to take at the moment is a crossbow. Ironically, I think I'm using a crossbow. We've then got dash, 1 point in dash with enhanced dash and discipline dash. Gives us a little bit of CC with that daze, gives us critical strike damage when we've used it. Into Dark Shroud. Now, this is a very cool part of the build. This is what we're going to be using to keep ourselves alive effectively. It's a major part of our damage reduction toolkit, so make sure you're using it pretty much on cooldown. We then have Enhanced Dark Shroud, which just a random chance for it to not be consumed, as well as Subverting Dark Shroud for that extra movement speed. So even if you're running around, pop Dark Shroud because it's a massive movement speed, 20% movement speed increase. We then go into Poison Trap. Now, this is a poison-based build, and the poison damage it does is absurd. So, what I was doing on some of the mobs in the Capstone dungeon, where they were particularly big, level 50, with 3-4 modifiers, is I was actually placing down 3 or 4 poison traps and kiting them into it. It does a lot of damage, you maintain that damage buff, and the knockdown is incredible as well. So we've got 5 points in here, obviously 2 from gear, which is really nice. We have the knockdown, which is just amazing. And a chance to reset your imbuement skill. So you always want to be using your imbuement, then your poison trap, just in case you get another round of imbuement. We're also running the exploit and malice. Malice will be used pretty much all the time just because of that vulnerability. And exploit gives us that big burst and kind of execute damage. So in then to poison imbuement, where we're running enhanced poison imbuement and blended poison imbuement for the critical strike increase. I mean, there is a possibility that if you aren't critting very much, especially at low levels of gear, that mixed poison imbuement is better or has a chance to be better. Me personally, I've just been sticking to blended. 5 points in that, 1 point into Deadly Venom. I will be taking more points into this, but obviously I'm in level 45. We've still got some points to get. But I really rush that debilitating toxins because the damage reduction on that is absurd. Remember, we've already got 2 different ways to heal ourselves through critical strikes and through our flurry, and then we're reducing all the damage because we pretty much don't ever attack a mob unless we're going to poison it. So really, really nice utility. Nothing down at the ultimate skills level, and we have currently gone for the close quarters combat. The reason for that is because you're going to be bouncing between puncture and flurry quite often, using both to maintain combo points, which we'll talk about more in a second. But you gain the bonus of this anyway, so you're going to almost always have 20% attack speed and 20% increased damage against crowd control enemies, bearing in mind that we're going to be slowing things, we're going to be dazing things, we're going to be knocking them down, we're going to be using so much CC anyway that that's going to be a huge damage increase. Now, I have played around with momentum, and I do like it generally, but it's just getting that daze off. Sometimes that can be quite annoying because you're not very often going to be hitting enemies from behind. That's not the purpose of the build. So the only form of daze is from that dash, and it has to. They already have to be slowed for that to work. So it can be a little bit annoying. But yeah, so in specializations, we've gone for combo points. There is an argument that you could swap to inner sight for bosses just to be able to pump that flurry, but there's no real need for it. So we stick with the combo points. And like I said, there's a couple more points we can take. We won't take another one in Siphoning Strikes. It's just not necessary. I believe. So I'm not going to claim credit for this build. This was off D4 builds. I believe they take 2 more points in Deadly Venom, which I can absolutely understand, and the 3 point or 1 point in Adrenaline Rush, 3 points in Haste for that increased movement speed and attack speed when you're low on energy. Now, generally, when you're fighting mobs, you'll use dash as your mobility, getting around, evade to dodge attacks, but dash is your mobility in a fight. You use your imbuement pretty much on cooldown every time it's up. It just pumps damage, and you want that poison up as much as possible. Now, if you're fighting like a boss and you're not going to get those resets, what you can do is delay using, so you use a poison imbuement as the poison is about to run off from that, pop a trap, so you're maintaining that poison all the way through the fight to maintain the damage debuff. But just generally, you want to be using Poison Trap pretty much on cooldown. You want to be using Dark Shroud pretty much on cooldown. Imbuement as soon as you get into a pack. And what I tend to do is I'll stand at, I say range, but you know what I mean, kind of just outside of melee, puncture until I see one vulnerability, and then I go in, flurry 2 or 3 times, and everything's dead. Now, there is a few aspects that really do help with this. So one of them is this one: make an enemy vulnerable has a 30% chance to grant 3% increased critical strike chance. That's pretty much up all the time if you can maintain fights, and that's 9% crit. Obviously, we talked about the flurry aspect as well. We've also got killing a vulnerable enemy grants you 50% increased energy regen. Absolutely absurd. And one of the other ones I was using is basic skills grant 20% damage reduction. But there's like 8, 9 different aspects you can use. I'd say the core ones that you want, well, the core one is that one. Everything else is kind of just a cherry on top. So that's my build at the moment. Like I said, it literally just carried me through a capstone. I've never seen that capstone before, so it's not like I was super experienced. Gone in, smashed through it, and yeah, all good. So we're going to be doing more stuff. Like I said, we have just unlocked Nightmare. Probably not brave enough to go into Nightmare yet. I think we're going to farm up a few more Whispers, or Grim Favors even. And yeah, that'll be our plan. Get to 50 and then start looking at Nightmare. So hope you guys enjoy. If you do try out the build, please let me know in the comments. All that good stuff. Like, comment, subscribe. You know the usual. Thanks for watching. Bye.